Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Goodtrend again. I am here with your week 2 math lesson. I hope that you guys enjoyed last week's lesson. I hope that you watched it. I hope you did the practice. If you had any questions, I hope you reached out to your teachers and showed them all the great work you did last week with your multiplication and division strategies using that get box. And I hope that you're ready for this week's lesson now. So this week we are going to be shifting gears and moving on to fractions. Okay, so the standard we're going to be focusing on today is standard 3.2a, name and write fractions and mixed numbers represented by models. So what that basically means is we are going to be naming fractions. Okay? And the one we're going to be focusing on this week, because we're also going to do this next week, is we are going to be focusing on proper fractions. So some of you might remember what a proper fraction is. Some of you might not. So we are going to answer that question first. What is a proper fraction? So a fraction is a number that shows equal parts of a whole. Okay? That is very important, that equal parts. Okay? It's not a fraction if the figure, the shape that you are looking at is not equal. And more specifically, for a proper fraction, okay, it is when the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So some of you may be asking yourselves or not remembering, what is a numerator and what is a denominator? So we are going to look at that next. Okay? They're the two parts of a fraction. So your fractions look like this. You have a number on top, you have your fraction bar, and you have your number on the bottom. So right now I want you to think, what is that top number called? We don't call it the top number. We're in 3rd grade. We know it has a proper name. Okay? So that top number, if you remember, is the numerator. And the numerator shows the part. So maybe you'll have the question, how many pieces are shaded? So what part of that whole is shaded? That will be your numerator. Now try and think about the bottom number. We said the top is the numerator. You only had 2 choices. So clearly the bottom number is the denominator. And the denominator shows the total number of equal, there's that important word again, equal parts in one whole. Today we are only going to be looking at objects that are one whole. Okay, we're not going over a whole today. So everything will be in one whole today. So right now we're going to watch a quick video that shows us ways to represent a fraction. This video goes with your textbook, the book that we used at school, our journal. So if you're looking at Origo at Home, this video is directly from Origo at Home for this week. And if you need it in Spanish, it's in Spanish also on Origo at Home. And so if you want to listen to it in Spanish, it's also available. Okay, so we are going to be looking at those models today. We are going to be looking at the length model and the area model together because for what we need to know, those are basically the same thing. It's one shape broken into equal pieces. So we're not going to divide those into 2 separate ones. So we're going to look at the area model, we're going to look at the set model, and we're going to look at the number line model. And And if you need to rewatch this video again, you can. I know they used a lot of big words, okay, but we're going to break it down a little bit more now. Oops. That's one. Okay. So the first one we're going to look at is the area model. So we're going to look at their first question over here, and it says, what fraction of the shape is shaded? And if you remember, okay, the numerator is going to tell us what part we're looking for. So in this case, it's asking for what's shaded. And our denominator is the total amount in the whole. Okay, so if we go ahead and we first, I know I told my students when we were doing fractions that I always like to start with the denominator because that's the one that we get confused with more. So if we start, we're going to count the total number in this whole. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there are 6 equal pieces in this whole. That's going to be our denominator. And then our numerator is what is shaded. Right here it says is shaded. And we can recount just to be sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are shaded. Okay, so 5 out of the 6, I want you to think, how would we say that? It would be 5/6. Okay, 5/6 of this shape is shaded. Okay, let's look at another one. Same question this time. What fraction of the shape is shaded? Okay, and again, I like to start with my denominator. Okay, and then we'll count our numerator after. So sometimes, especially in a shape like this, where there's a lot of pieces, it's easy to get confused and lose track, which is why I like to number how many pieces I'm counting. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so remember, 10 is the total number of pieces in this shape. 10 is going to be my denominator. Okay, and now I need to figure out what is shaded. That's going to be my numerator. Okay, this figure is a little bit different because they're not all in order, so I need to be very careful when I'm counting. And maybe I'll use a different, just a mark this time to count that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 are shaded out of the 10, making this fraction 7/10. We're going to look at one more example of an area model. Okay. Again, we need to read the question, what fraction of the shape is shaded? Same question. So we're looking for what's shaded. Again, I like to start with the denominator, the total number of pieces in the whole. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so our denominator is going to be 8 for this one. And how many are shaded? Well, we already went in order. We counted. 5 of them are shaded. 5 out of the 8 pieces are shaded for this figure, making our fraction 5/8. Again, the area model is one that you guys did really well with when we taught it in class. Okay. These next two are the ones that were a little bit new for 3rd grade. So the next one we're going to look at is our set model. And for our set model, we have to be really careful that we're looking carefully at the question and really paying attention to that denominator, the total number of objects in the whole. If you remember in the video, it asks about a carton of eggs. That one carton is our whole, so you need to count up how many total eggs there were, which I believe was 12 in the video. It asks how many were brown. 6 were brown, so your fraction was 6. So let's take a look at our first question. What fraction of the triangles are inside the circle? Inside. Okay. So I know that a big mistake I saw in my class was that a lot of students like to count the inside, and that was our numerator, which is correct. But then for our denominator, we put what was on the outside. Is that how many total triangles there are? I don't think so. So again, okay, we can start with our denominator. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 triangles in total. The denominator is the total number, whether it's equal pieces in the shape, pieces in the set, whatever it's asking of you, that is your denominator. Now it's asking for what is inside the circle. Let's count again just to be sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tenths is the answer to this question. Our next example, what fraction of the animals are cats? I want you to see, maybe pause the video right now, see if you can figure this one out. Remember, count the total number of animals for your denominator. It's asking for cats. So right now, if you want to pause, go ahead and pause and see if you can figure this one out. So again, the total number of animals, there are 4 animals. That's our denominator. This is asking for cats. There's 1 cat sitting right there. So our fraction is going to be 1/4. Last one, what fraction of the houses have a chimney? So these are the chimneys on these little houses. Again, we're going to start with our denominator. Again, if you want to pause the video right now, see if you can figure this one out on your own, go ahead. We're going to count up the total number of houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 houses. Okay. And then the chimneys, there are 3 houses that have chimneys on them, making our fraction 3/7. Our last way to represent a fraction is on a number line. And this is the one that confused a lot of us when we first did it. I think you guys did much better as you practiced more, but I know we haven't practiced this in a while. So here's our first number line. If you notice, it's labeled 0 to 1. That is 1 whole. We don't want to look outside in front of the 0 or after the 1. We want to make sure we're looking between 0 and 1. And I taught, and I think all 3rd grade students learn this, that when we are figuring out the denominator, we would like to count the spaces between 0 and 1. The reason for that is that some students will start at 0 and count that as 1, but that's labeled 0. So if that's 0, it can't also be 1. So we can count the spaces to make sure that we are not making any mistakes in our counting. So to find the denominator, we're going to count the spaces between 0 and 1. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So that's going to be my denominator, 6. And then for our numerator, we're going to count the spaces between 0 and where our box is for this one. Maybe some of your examples that you saw in class had an X wherever we wanted to go to, but whatever that marking is, that's going to be where your numerator stops. So in this case, there's 1, 2. 2 is our numerator, 6 is our denominator for a fraction of 2/6. Our next example, we're going to follow those same steps again. We're going to count the spaces between 0 and 1. So for this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is going to be my denominator. If we count the spaces between 0 and our box, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. So our fraction for this one is 4/5. We have one more example to look at. Okay. Again, we count the spaces between 0 and 1. You're probably like, Miss Goodfriend, we know. I know you know. Okay. We need to remember it. So we start at 0, stop at 1, spaces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces between 0 and 1. That's my denominator. Okay. And then we need to count the spaces until we get up to the box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces until that box, making this fraction 5/8. So now I'm going to quickly go over your assignments that are going to be on your choice board this week. So it's set up very similar to last week. You're going to have a practice that goes along with the lesson that you're just listening to now. You're going to have an option of MobyMax and Prodigy. Those will also align to what we just learned about. So they will be fractions this week. And then your last option is going to be fact fluency practice. If you remember, when we were in school, your homework for math every night was fact fluency, to practice those facts for 10 minutes. It is very important that we continue to practice that. We want you going to 4th grade knowing those addition facts, knowing those subtraction facts. So the more you practice, the better you will get. So your fraction practice for this week, we're going to discard that, is this page. So the top part, if you look at the directions right now, say write the fraction for the shaded area of each shape. So again, it's very similar to what I just did during the lesson. You're going to count the total number of pieces. That's going to be your denominator. And then you're going to see how much is shaded, and that will be your numerator. So for this first one, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal pieces. That's your denominator. 3 are shaded. So the fraction for this first one is 3/4. If you are not able to print out this page, just like I said last week, get a piece of paper at home. Write down your answers. Send your teacher your answers. They would love, love, love to see the work that you are working on. The next part, so there are 8 questions having to do with the area model. The next part are 4 questions having to do with a set model. Again, it says write the fraction for the shaded area in each group. So the group is your whole this time, all of it. And what is shaded is going to be the part, the numerator. And then your last part of this assignment is going to be the number line practice. For each number line below, determine which fraction belongs in the box. So it's very similar to what I just did during the lesson. So if you have any questions about what I just went over, please, please feel free to reach out to your teachers. Okay? We would love to see what you're working on. We hope that you have a lovely, lovely week, and I will be seeing you next week. Enjoy.